Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 5 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Always remember, if you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on any podcasting platform, there will be cookies in your near future. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Jacket Fruit. Complain about how I do my job? Cool. Let's see how things go when I do it your way. I work as a school janitor. Half my day is spent in the lunchroom emptying the trash cans and sweeping up. At most schools, you get 15 plus minutes in between each lunch period to do all the cleaning. At my school, I get less than 2 minutes if I'm lucky. Normally, if a trash can isn't full, I'll just dump one can into another and then tie off that bag when it gets full. It's a lot faster than having to replace every bag every time, and it saves a ton of bags. I also sweep up around the tables, and if I see a big mess under a table, I ask the kids to move their feet and sweep that up too. I do it this way because it's the only way to keep up and keep things clean. If I pulled every bag every time instead of dumping one can into another, not only would I run out of bags halfway through the week, but it would also take way longer. If I only swept under tables when there was no kid sitting there, I would literally never have an opportunity to sweep under tables. Enter the lunch ladies. Most of them are nice, but there's this one older one who is just a miserable human being. She yells at everyone, including the kids, and is just always angry about something. Earlier this week, she yelled at me for dumping one trash can into another instead of pulling the bag. Why she chose today to do this, I don't know, since I'd been doing this every day for the past 3+ years. I know how to do my job and didn't ask her opinion, so I just ignored her, didn't say anything, and kept doing what I was doing. Fast forward an hour or two, and I'm getting a call from my district boss that there was a complaint filed against me. The lunch ladies are saying they don't like that I dump cans instead of pulling bags, and they don't like that I sweep under the kids' feet. My boss tells me just stick to cleaning in between lunch periods. I try to explain that that's literally a period of less than 2 minutes and isn't even a fifth of the amount of time I'd need to do it that way. He says just do it anyway to keep the lunch ladies happy. He's a good dude, but he's just trying to squash complaints and keep them from going further. He says from now on, I'm only to empty trash or sweep the floors in between lunches when there's not students in the cafeteria. And also, I'm to pull the bags every time. No more dumping cans. Cue Malicious Compliance. Starting then, I only cleaned in between lunches when there were no kids. Of course, this is literally like a minute and a half, so I only had time to get to half the trash cans. And since I was replacing every bag instead of dumping cans, each can took longer. I didn't even have time to sweep at all. The trash cans I couldn't get to would fill up and overflow, and the kids don't care and just keep piling trash on top. The floor got more and more covered in trash since I didn't have time to sweep at all. I did this for the rest of the week. The same bitchy lunch lady tried to scream at me to go empty the trash when I was standing there on Tuesday, but I explained I was told by my boss that you guys didn't like me sweeping or emptying trash around the kids, so now I'm only allowed to do that when the cafeteria is empty. I'd love to go get that trash can, but there's kids eating lunch right now, so I'm not allowed. She tried to argue, but I just told her I'm following direct and explicit orders from my boss. There was nothing she could do. When the final lunch ended, I cleaned as much as I could before 2 p.m. and then stopped, as that was my lunchtime, and the union requires that we take our lunches at our allotted times. It's non-optimal and zero tolerance for deviation. And after my lunch, I have to go clean classrooms since school is out and classrooms take priority over the cafeteria. End result, the cafeteria never got fully cleaned. When the lunch ladies came in Monday and found it still half filthy, they went through the roof and complained to my boss. He called me in and I explained that I was just following orders and that the lunch ladies were the ones who asked I do things this way. Suffice it to say, I was told to go back to doing it however I thought was best. You want to stick your nose in my business and tell me how to do my job? See how that turns out. Oh, and also since then, I spent the rest of the week calling them out on all the things they were doing wrong. Previously, I just kept my mouth shut and minded my business. But now we're doing this the way you want it. Door propped open because it's incredibly hot in the kitchen and you need the airflow? Sorry, that's a security issue. Doors cannot be propped open. Greasy wax paper in the cardboard recycling? Sorry, that can't go in there. Normally, I just grab it as I see it. But now, I waited till the end of the day and then tell them. They had to pick it all out by hand. You guys like having the radio playing in the kitchen? Sorry, not allowed. Shut it down. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Mr. Death Llama to You. It says, when I got hired as a teacher, my mom, a former teacher, told me to make sure I was on the good side of the janitor, custodian, and the secretary because they were the ones who really run the school. 25 years later, I can say that was some of the best advice she ever gave me. Another commenter down below called Shadow Dragon 8685 said, sounds like that school needs more reasonable times for lunch, or it needs more custodians, or both. But to be honest, I would not say that classrooms are higher priority than the cafeteria. Untidy classrooms look unseemly, and untidy food area is a health hazard, as you rightly point out. OP, I sincerely hope that when you were doing things that were making their life difficult, that the lunch people who weren't involved in your situation were making it extremely difficult for the one busybody lunch lady who was. I also need to point out one more thing. Every time I hear a story that has a lunch lady in it now, I've been tainted by Adam Sandler and his song Lunch Ladyland. Sloppy Joe, sloppy Joe. This story comes to us from Agyani. They asked me to train my replacement, and guess who they called back 3 months later? This is about one of my past jobs. My boss tells me they hired someone new, and that they want me to train him. We need you to show him the ropes, get him up to speed, and let him take over your role, they said. I'm like, okay, whatever. They hired someone, fine. But then I'm thinking, they didn't really offer me any growth or a better opportunity. No promotions, no let's get you somewhere new, just train this guy so he can do your job better. Alright, if that's what they want, I'll give them exactly that. So I showed the new guy the basics, nothing too fancy, just the bare minimum. Here's how you do this, here's how you do that, follow the steps and you'll be fine. Don't give him any of my little tricks. Didn't dive into the stuff that took me years to learn. I just gave him a how-to guide, that's it. And honestly, it wasn't even about him. The guy seemed cool, I wasn't trying to mess with him, but hey, if they want me out and him in, I'm not gonna go out of my way to make him a star. 3 months go by, and I'm out of there. Then, surprise, surprise, my boss calls me back. Hey, we've been having some trouble with the new guy. You think you could come back and help us out for a bit? I'm just sitting there, laughing to myself, like I knew this was going to happen. You can't just replace someone with the basics and expect it to run smoothly. By that point though, I was already in a new role at a new place where they actually saw my value and gave me the chance to grow. So when my old boss called, I just told him, nah, I'm good now, got a new thing going on, appreciate the offer though. So yeah, lesson learned for them. You can't expect someone to train their replacement with just the bare minimum and think everything's going to be fine. Moral of the story? If you ain't gonna give me a chance to grow, I'm not gonna make your replacement look better than me. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Spin-Ons Are the Best. It says, sure, my consulting fee is 3 times what you paid me in 10-hour blocks, whether I work 1 hour or 10. Alright, the fun bit about this one was the way that OP stated, you think you could come back and help us out for a bit? Wait, what? You want me to come back just for a little while to make sure that guy's fully trained, and then you can just kick me out again? Yeah, as the commenter said, 3 times my regular salary, plus a bonus at the end, once he's able to do my job properly. You know, and in that case, I don't think I would teach them all of the tricks I knew previously either. I'd just make sure they know how to do the job properly, but the little tricks that I learned over the years, well, they can learn them over the years as well. That's not my problem. This story also comes to us from Agyani. Oh, you want me to be thorough? You got it. So, I used to have this manager who was obsessed with thoroughness. Every task, every report, every email, be more thorough, he'd say. At first, it was just minor tweaks, but soon it got out of hand. He started rejecting reports for not having enough detail, even when the numbers were completely self-explanatory. One day, I submitted our usual weekly report. Simple, clear, and to the point. He sent it back, not thorough enough, resubmit. Alright, if thoroughness is what he wants, thoroughness is what he's going to get. I wrote the entire report into a 20-page epic. I included a detailed breakdown of every number with footnotes, a section explaining why negative numbers exist, because math, an entire appendix on the history of our software vendor, a glossary just in case anyone forgot what profit meant, a disclaimer in case of an unwanted event, these numbers may become irrelevant. I sent it off and waited. A few hours later, I got a one-line response. This looks good, but next time, keep it simple. Oh, so now we like simple? Sure thing, boss. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Cool Beans Chili. It says, that's when you send the entire long-form Oxford Dictionary of the etymology of the word simple, and all the synonyms and their long-form etymologies, just to make sure your boss understands what they're asking you. I'm following along with this and OP's last story, but this one really, to me, seems like it was a case of, my boss told me I wasn't doing my job well enough, so I did my job well enough, and he said that was good, but I could simplify it a bit. Not sure what the malicious part of this compliance is because, OP, you did what you were told, and they accepted it. In fact, they even said this is good. This story comes to us from Honigman13, Real Car in Children's Room. I'm not sure if this is the right sub, but it's too good not to share. A friend of mine told me this episode from his childhood. The house he lived in with his parents was on a curve. It was the main road to a huge disco. You can imagine how it continues. His room faced the street. For a while, everything went well, until almost every other weekend a car couldn't make the curve and crashed into the house. So he has stories about how he was woken up by a car in his children's room. Unfortunately, most of the cars weren't broken enough, so the drivers fled. Since there were no perpetrators, his parents were left with the cost. They wrote to the city asking them to do something to make the curve safer. Of course, nothing happened. Then they came up with an idea. Since the city isn't changing anything about the curve, our problem is that the perpetrators can keep driving. They laid tree trunks across the lawn in front of the house. The solution to the problem began the very next weekend. Cars continued to drive into the house, but the trees had damaged the axles of all the cars so badly that they were no longer drivable. This led to two results. All damage was paid out from now on, and, strangely enough, the number of accidents on this bend decreased so that only 2 or 3 cars got stuck in the tree trunks a year. OP added a note down at the bottom. It says, note, of course, my friend didn't have his children's room facing the front the whole time. After the accident started, he had another room in the house. I've actually heard stories about this many times in the past where people living on curves have had issues with cars going onto their property or sometimes even hitting their buildings. And one thing I notice if you drive around is that most corners where houses occur, they do have something on the lawn that would prevent vehicles from getting all the way up to the house. Be it a big garden of some sort, gigantic boulders, or tree trunks like they did in this story. Yeah, that's definitely something you'd want to do, because after the car goes through the house the first time, you never want that to happen again. This story comes to us from Cruz Bet's Revenge. Oh, I have to return your tile, do I? This was a few years ago now. I was working for a local flooring retailer. It was a cool job, and for the most part, the customers were cool. Until one day, let's call him Jonesy, not his name, just how I think of him, comes in and buys some tile. He buys probably 6 different colors for different areas of the house. I explain at the time, if he has any full boxes when he's done, we'll take them back and get him a refund. He says okay and leaves. A couple days later, in strolls Jonesy, and he wants to return his tile. Okay, no problem, until I see that old Jonesy has brought back 3 or 4 tiles from each of the colors he bought. He has not one single box. I don't have a good way to return single tiles. I let him know why I can't and what we can't do. Dude immediately goes full boomer and starts raising his voice at me and telling me how we lied and misrepresented our process. After a couple minutes, I'm thinking this is in no way worth it, so I just make up some item roughly the cost of his tile and hand him the cash. As he's walking out the door, I hit him with the polite, "Have a nice day," to which he responds with a couple expletives. Here is where the malicious compliance comes in. I knew what he returned was the last of those tile colors, and we weren't getting any more in. So I grab one of the loaders and have him immediately take them out to the dumpster and make sure he breaks them in the hope old Jonesy runs a couple short. A couple days go by and nothing. I was a little disappointed as I thought my plan was awesome. Then, about 4 days after he returned his tile, he comes in all frantic and needs more. I let him know that since I only had a couple tiles of those colors, I couldn't resell them, so they were thrown in the dumpster. But he was welcome to see if there were any that were still usable. He looked super pissed, but couldn't do anything, so I took him out to the dumpster and let him look around, but all that was left was broken pieces. It was awesome. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Duck Giblets. It says, "Tile installer here, very important to keep spares. With the size of tiles these days, 1 to 2 boxes left over on medium-sized projects is a good idea, especially if it's a kitchen area. Earthquakes happen, things get dropped, cabinetry gets changed. On that note, if a floor is installed correctly and you drop a cast iron pan, the tile may end up with a small chip and the pan will break. Ask how I know." OP, I really like how you handled this one, but I think you could have taken this a step further. You could have kept those there because you had a feeling that they were going to come back, and you could have said, "Oh, well, they're much more expensive now since they're extremely rare and discontinued designs that you won't be able to find anywhere else. So instead of being $5 a square foot, they're now $50 a square foot. Pay up." If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and give us a rating on the podcast platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.